You know, just like everyone else, I always find myself wondering what would have happened if Naruto didn't have Kurama. Naruto is a kind and strong-willed shinobi. Part of the reason why he ended up like this was because of his upbringing as a child. Naruto was an orphan, but unlike any other orphan, he was disliked by the most population because he contained the nine tails. No matter how bad they hated him, they could never do anything to him due to the third Hokage passing a law from doing anything or saying anything to Naruto. When Naruto was young, he never knew the reason why he was hated and ignored. This led to him vandalizing the village, seeking the attention of others. Although not a good upbringing, it is what led Naruto to becoming who he is. But what would happen if Naruto was not subjugated to all that hate when he was young? What if someone else was made the ninth jinjuriki instead of Naruto? How would Naruto end? Would he still be the same person, or would there be a change in his character? Well, that is what you are about to find out through this series. So sit back and relax and let your ears do all the work. Let's begin. Chapter 1. And not so normal now. The sun broke the horizon, bathing the forest in golden light. The dull and repetitive sounds of fists impacting woods echoed around the clearing that encompassed Training Ground 9. The training ground was entirely unremarkable, a medium-sized clearing that held 2 tree stumps in the middle of it and nothing else. It held no impressive backstory. It didn't even have an unimpressive one at that. Training Ground 9 was just another training ground, one of the many that was spaced around the great village Konoha. It was small, out of the way, and used very little by the general shinobi populace. All of that suited the 10-year-old Uzumaki Naruto just fine. Being out of the way and secluded was exactly how the orphan liked it. Having grown up a neglected ward of the great ninja village, Naruto had more often than not been looked up upon less than favorable by the general populace. He, like the rest of the orphans in the village, was a reminder that Konoha wasn't absolutely perfect. He was a stain if one chose to look at it that way. His existence was a blemish on the otherwise immaculate reputation that the continent's most powerful hidden village boasted. The boy had a head top with a tuft of shining golden blonde hair, and 2 piercing blue eyes adorned his visage. He was dressed in a black short-sleeved shirt with a collar that reached up towards his chin. Beige shinobi pants covered his legs and were taped at the ankle, leading into standard black shinobi sandals. The hands that pounded an innocent training log were wrapped in white bandages. Many would ask why a boy of 10 years old would be training his body to the break of dawn. The answer was that this was a special day for Naruto. It was the day he graduated Konoha's Ninja Academy. Again. Naruto had entered Konoha's Ninja Academy 4 years previously, at the ripe age of 6, with nothing but the clothes on his back and a name given to him by his mother, Uzumaki Kushina. From there, Naruto had been taking the steps toward achieving the dream that he had for as long as he could remember, to become a respected Konoha Jonin and raise a respectable family with his name, to make the Uzumaki known once more. Naruto was one of the many orphans in Konoha, and thus the idea of a family was one that had permeated his mind for years. All that he knew about his family was that his mother was named Uzumaki Kushina and had been one of the many ninjas who had been killed in the Kyubi attacks 1 year after he had been born. His father was unknown and was liable to stay that way. Naruto had made his way through the academy doggedly, methodically, clawing and scraping the skills that were necessary to have him proclaimed as the Rookie of the Year. 3 full years before his scheduled graduation, no one had called him a genius, and he had never considered himself to be one. His skills had taken everyone, including the academy instructors, by surprise. He didn't take to jutsu any faster than anyone else. Thrown weapons were no easier for him to handle than for any other person in the class, and he didn't absorb knowledge like a sponge. He merely had a goal to achieve and a work ethic and motivation to back it up. When Uzumaki Naruto had his mind set to do something, one could rest assured that it would get done. That was just the way he was. He wasn't the heir to some lost and obscure bloodline, nor was he the child of any particularly owned shinobi or kunoichi. His mother had been a foreign chunin given asylum. His graduating position at the top had been a result of him working hours and more hours than his peers. Nothing more and nothing less. That had been 1 year ago. 1 year ago, he had been on top of his very own world and on the fast track to achieving his dream. He knew that it would take a lot more effort, a lot more work, but effort was never something he had a problem giving. The feelings of elation and accomplishment had all come down crashing shortly after he had met his Jonin sensei, Hareke Kakashi. The 23-year-old A-rank shinobi prodigy had slammed the 9-year-old back down to earth and had proceeded to crush his dreams under his foot. The belt test had proven to be a challenge that not even Naruto's work ethic and determination could overcome. Tired, hungry, and bogged down by teammates whose combined skill didn't measure up to his own, Naruto had failed the test spectacularly. The notion of teamwork hadn't dawned on him until the very end, and by then it had been far too late. There had been no second chance at success. The trio of genin wannabes had been sent back to the academy stinging, his pride wounded. Naruto had prepared himself for a year of review and training before he would hopefully be restored into a new team. That had not been the case, however. One of the lesser-known programs in Konoha was the Shinobi Reserve program. The program took the failed graduates of the regular academy and put them through a rigorous, accelerated training regimen that was designed to turn out Chunin-level shinobi and kunoichi. It had been instigated by the Nedain Hokage once it was discovered that less than 50% of all the academy graduates were actually passed by their joining instructors due to failings of some sort. A system that turned out fewer than 15 new shinobi per year was one that simply wasn't pragmatic, not even for the largest ninja village. Naruto had taken to accelerated training much as he had to everything in life, with the same dogged determination that had won him his skills when he wasn't in class reinforcing what he had already knew. He was in the clearing, drilling. The blonde had entered there into the program knowing that his dream of joining was nearly destroyed entirely. The graduates of the reserve program could never obtain the rank of Jonin. The title was reserved for the students of the elite, almost exclusively, unless they became captains of an Anbu squad or were given a field promotion from the Hokage. Both were long reaches by any stretch of it, but both were long reaches by any stretch of the mill. The result was that many of Konoha Chunin ended up being just as strong as many Jonin. Just because they couldn't feasibly reach the rank by conventional means didn't mean that many of them didn't try. Beyond that, many graduates entered the Anbu Black Ops in order to serve their village as one of the masked elite. The realization that his dream was so far out of reach had greatly depressed the boy for all of about 5 minutes before he had thrown himself back into training with a fever that was nearly inhuman. He had his goal and he would reach it no matter what it took. Every day of the next year of his life had been spent training in some way or other. From dawn until 9 in the morning, he would train his body physically and work on taijutsu katas. He would eat a meal composed of cold cereal and a protein shake for breakfast at 9 and then make his way to class. Class lasted until 1:30 in the afternoon. It was some of the most boring time in Naruto's young life. From then until 4, he would train in weapons. Everything from shuriken to senbon and the practical application of ninja wire were drilled during the 2.5-hour period. He would break for a modest lunch for 1 hour before going back to drilling his chakra control and basic hand seal. The simple and often overlooked aspects of shinobi life were concentrated upon and drilled to near perfection. He was a workhorse and a perfectionist at heart, and he'd be damned if he was undone by something so simple. It was the small details that killed after all. Directly following his chakra control practices, Naruto would train and attempt to master whatever particular jutsu he had happened to be working on. His mastery was more about understanding the ins and outs of the technique rather than simply quitting after he had managed to perform it. The ability to further modify ninjutsu was something that greatly interested him, and his own perfectionist tendencies would hardly allow him to leave a technique not fully dissected. As a result, he was familiar with fewer ninjutsu than he might have liked, but he could say with certainty that he had mastered the few he knew. By that time, the day was nearly over and Naruto retired to his small one bedroom and one bathroom apartment. He would eat his dinner and would proceed to meditate and research genjutsu. Genjutsu could not be practiced by oneself, so Naruto devoted his evenings to researching the art of illusions. He trained all aspects of shinobi life equally in order to become what he felt was the epitome of shinobi, the perfect all-rounder, the jack of all trades, or quote, the glorified generalizer as he called it. That brought him to his current position today, pounding his fists into a log at the crack of dawn, the day of his graduation from Konoha's reserve program. The exam was scheduled to begin at 9 a.m. and all of the potential graduates were supposed to meet at 8:45 at the entrance to training ground 44, known to many as the Forest of Death. As soon as the potential graduates had been informed by their instructors as to the location of the exam, Naruto had done some immediate scouting and research. The training ground 44 was a booby trap in and of itself, and for that reason it was used for the survival part of the tuning exam, and whenever they happened to be in Konoha. The research had produced results that were decidedly unappealing, and any objective that was to be found in Forest of Death meant that the final exam would be a survival test. It wasn't that Naruto was bad at survival tests. He wasn't bad at anything. One thing in particular. He just didn't like them. And they always tested stamina, something that he had too little of to be happy with at 10 years old. Feeling his fists impact the log for the 2000th time that morning, Naruto stopped his punches. He carefully unwrapped the bandages that covered his hands and wrists and placed the white material into his back pocket, directly next to his shuriken pouch. Making his way out of the clearing, Naruto broke into a jog. While normally he would stay and complete his taijutsu training, he didn't want to tire his body unnecessarily before the exam began. And he needed time to properly digest a good breakfast. A ninja couldn't function properly on an empty stomach now, could he? A breeze ruffled the hair and clothes of the gathered shinobi as the Forest of Death loomed ominously behind them. Checking his watch, Naruto saw that the time was exactly 8:45 as he stepped through the gate that led to the training ground 44. A ninja is never late, nor is he early. A ninja arrives precisely when he is supposed to. Naruto recited in his mind. The second his foot touched the ground of training ground 44, Naruto was planning. His sky blue eyes scanned the crowd of shinobi hopefuls, not stopping on anyone in particular, but assessing everyone. This was a survival exercise, and that meant that anyone and everyone was a potential enemy. The ones grouped together and tittering nervously would pose no real threat unless they attacked him all at once. They held no confidence in their skill, and even the smallest lack of confidence was exploitable. The same went for those who stood mostly alone and arrogant in their posture, but for a different reason. A confident swagger and an air of self-assurance were good for a shinobi to have. It displayed confidence and could set the tone of a confrontation. But the overbearing arrogance displayed by many of the reserve students was appalling. They reminded him of the one student he had bypassed during his stint at the regular academy, Hyuga Nezi or something. You'd think they owned the world, Naruto wondered with amusement. The thought was sobered by the fact that he had been much the same way only 1 year ago, before he met Kakashi Hatake. That was. While he may not like the Jonin, he had to at least mentally thank him for showing him that he wasn't as good as he thought. Everyone got their reality check at some point. He knew he would be glad that he got his early rather than later. Moving to stand with the rest of the hopeful, Naruto's thoughts were interrupted by the sound of one of the proctors beating. "Listen up, runs," a proctor with silver hair began. "My name is Mizuki Toji, and I'm going to be the proctor for this exam." The scowl on the man's face was designed to look intimidating, but Naruto thought it laughable. The man wasn't imposing in the slightest. "As a chunin of Konoha, you are expected to take on the majority of missions that come through the mission office, B ranks," the silver-haired man named Mizuki continued. "A B rank mission can be anything from guard duty to a search and destroy mission that may be vital to a village. A B rank mission can be anything from guard duty to a search and destroy mission that may be vital to village security." Naruto found himself bored with the man's speech. It didn't contain any information he didn't know, and he just wanted to get this exam over with. He was looking forward to treating himself to a Tori bowl of Ichiraku ramen after. Best stuff in the world. best stuff in the world that ramen was. Your mission today will consist of retrieval of scroll from the innermost point of the forest, the central tower. Your objective is located at the topmost point of the tower, and there are only 25 scrolls. With 51 of you here today, that means that roughly 50% of you will pass, Mizuki said. The sound of nervous tittering from hopefuls followed. Naruto raised an eyebrow in question. The test seemed fairly simple overall, and the only way he could see it becoming harder was if there was an imposed time limit. The man seemed to read Naruto's thoughts. The time limit is 1 day and 1 day only, the Chunin said. Shock mingled with no small amount of outrage from the general populace. Even Naruto was wary at the short amount of time. You fail if you fail to retrieve a scroll or otherwise subdued. Killing is not permitted under any circumstance. The last statement managed to shut the crowd up pretty fast. Killing one's comrade was looked down upon in all but the most barbaric of villages, and the thoughts of that someone among them might kill one of them in order to pass was an uneasy thought. All examinees are to report to the gate in groups of 3, no more or no less. I trust that you are able to divide yourself evenly, Mizuki finished, a rather poor attempt at a sneer mirroring his face. As the Chunin hopefuls rapidly moved towards the gate of choice, Naruto calmly walked forward to the first gate, the one where Mizuki had been standing. He was quickly joined by 2 others who had taken his example, one boy who looked decidedly nervous and a girl who looked too confident for her own good. The girl flipped her long red hair over her shoulder as she sneered down at the younger and undeniably shorter Naruto. Naruto for his part merely smiled pleasantly in response as the girl opened her mouth. Given how short you are, you must be that little phenomenon that everyone was talking about earlier, the unnamed girl said with a sneer still firmly etched on her face. And that's a bad thing? The blonde thought snidely. The pleasant smile didn't slip for a moment as Naruto shot back. That's me, I guess. You seem to have me at a disadvantage though, stranger. Isn't it polite to introduce yourself before you jump into a conversation? The sneer merely deepened Naruto's statement. The young boy decided to find a teacher to help him perfect the sneer like that. All you need to know, Runt, is that I'm going to show you what a real ninja is once we get in the forest. The girl promptly turned her back on Naruto before he could make a response. Oh really? Naruto asked skeptically. His smile dissolved into a fierce smirk. Tell me, stranger. I wasn't aware that real ninja wore white. Correct me if I'm wrong. The girl simply leveled Naruto with a glare that could freeze the tropic waters of sea country. As the other boy chuckled slightly to himself, Naruto took the ensuing silence to look over his peers once more. The girl was indeed wearing white. It was part of a form-fitting dress that the girl wore that would allow for maximum range of movement. Intermingled with red, the white dress was certainly pretty and even functional, while it flattered the kunoichi in training, developing curves generously. Not that the 10-year-old Naruto cared all that much. Even so, the fact that the color scheme would stick out like a sore thumb amongst the green that permeated the forest of death overruled the practicality of the dress. Shifting his blue eyes to the boy who was casually leaning against the wire fence, Naruto noted that the once nervous boy was now quite comfortable with his situation. Dressed in a forest green shirt and black pants, the boy spotted a pragmatic look. Given the situation, the look was further augmented by the slightly bulging weapon pouches that he carried on him and the black bandana that covered his hair. At least he looks competent, Naruto mused. For all he knew, the boy could be as bad as the dead last who had been dumped on his team the year before. Incompetent retard that he was, Naruto thought uncharitably. How about you then? Naruto addressed the boy. What's your name? Kishimoto Akira. At your service, the boy said with a fake pompous and a bow that was humorous despite the situation. Naruto smiled back. He liked pleasant people. Uzumaki Naruto, at your service. Future Jonin. Raised brows made his pronouncement. You seem confident in yourself. You do know that the road to Jonin is a real long one for a reserved grad, don't you? Akira inquired. The smile only got wider. Course I do. Won't stop me though, Naruto proclaimed confidently. I know what I need to do, and I'm no stranger to hard work. Akira seemed to appraise the short blonde once more, before giving a curt nod. Well, good luck then. Naruto nodded back in response. Enough chatter down there, the Chunin gate guard said from his post above them. I'm about to open the gate. Let the test begin. Mizuki's voice blared over the hidden speakers at the gate. The words had barely registered and the gate had not evenly fully opened before Naruto bled into motion. Using speed that had been gained over countless hours of training, Naruto's right hand dipped into his leg holster and withdrew a kunai. No one had time to react before Naruto viciously slammed it into the back of the unsuspecting red-headed girl's head. As the unconscious body slumped to the forest floor, Naruto formed a single hand seal. A second Naruto formed from the ground behind the stunned Akira and tapped the back of the boy's head. The smile on Naruto's face was bittersweet as he watched the boy's eyes roll backwards as he too slammed into the ground in unconsciousness. Too bad, Naruto stated to no one in particular. He supposed that he was addressing the now gaping Chunin god. That was the way of the ninja world though. The strong prospered while the weak and hesitant stumbled and were loaded over, waiting expectantly and plotting for the day when they would become the strong. Many others were cut down before their time to shine. Kira was a prime example. At least the boy had a chance to break out of the sleep-inducing genjutsu Naruto had placed on him. Maybe perhaps he would acquaint himself well by stealing a scroll from some unsuspecting wannabe. The girl, however, wasn't so lucky. Naruto sneered in distaste at the redhead. She would be lucky to wake up in anything less than 10 hours. Even then, she would probably still have a concussion. Shouldn't have called me a runt. Reholstering his kunai, Naruto dispelled his sushi bunshin with a minor application of chakra. That particular technique would serve him well in the future, and he was glad he had taken the time to properly master it. Being able to form the solid clone with only one seal was something that would prove to be invaluable in sticky situations. It was something he had prided himself on, as Earth was in his primary chakra affinity. Winking cheekily, the flaxen-haired youth gave the still-flawed Chunin a two-finger salute before bursting into the forest of death at breakneck speed. Naruto cursed his luck of the forethought as he blocked the swipe of kunai. That one would have sliced open his jugular and left him all but defenseless, bleeding, soon-to-be corpse. Leaping backwards to put some space between himself and his attack, Naruto unleashed a hail of shuriken. The bladed weapons didn't connect as expected, but they managed to push his enemy off of the attack. For that moment. In hindsight, it was borderline retardation to think that there wouldn't be guards surrounding the tower where his objective lay. Naruto had made it through training ground 44 with little trouble and with nothing but a few minor altercations with some other trainees. The small skirmishes had left him with a few bruises and scratches, but nothing more. The phrase, quote, "you should see the other guy," would have been appropriate. After reaching the tower, the 10-year-old blonde had calmly made his way towards the tower's entrance, where he was immediately set upon by a man who he assumed to be one of the examiners, an assumption made based on the Chunin vest the man wore. That had been exactly 1 minute and 17 seconds ago. Not many shinobi battles made it past the 1 minute mark. The element of surprise made it doubly so in the field, as Naruto cowered with a nearby log and flipped through a series of hand seals. He figured that the only reason he was still alive was the fact that the examiner wasn't trying to kill him. A movement in the corner of his right eye alerted him to the presence of his attacker charging him. A kunai hurtling towards his position. A smirk spread across the boy's face as he felt the kunai pass him 1 meter to the right, illusion in place. As the Chunin sprinted towards him in a zigzag pattern, Naruto channeled chakra into his legs and disappeared in a shanshin. The nameless Chunin was moving quickly to cover the ground between himself and Naruto. So when Naruto's outstretched arm made contact with the genjutsu-influenced man's solar plexus, it was as if the man had run headlong into a stone wall with the speed of both himself and Naruto combined. The Chunin under the influence of Naruto's small genjutsu was unconscious before the pain could reach. It was a moot point, however, as he would have been unconscious anyway. The second his back made contact with a tree some 5 meters away, the fight had lasted exactly 1 minute and 35 seconds. As Naruto quickly checked to make sure that the man was still alive, he had hit the tree quite hard. He cradled his throbbing right arm. The attack had been a spur of the moment idea of his and had proven itself effective. He would have to make sure that he reinforced his arm properly in the future, though he had merely dislocated his shoulder. Lariat, he thought with a small touch of pride. I'll have to remember to write that down. It would go next to his first original genjutsu on his personal scroll. Kokoni Aruzu no Jutsu. the genjutsu Naruto had used to trick the Chunin assailant into believing he was a meter from his actual position was a technique of his own making. The Chunin had a steady pulse, so Naruto felt comfortable leaving him where he was. Another examiner would find him, no doubt. Turning his attention to the tower, Naruto went over his knowledge of the exam. His target objective would most likely be at the top. They'll be expecting me to enter through the top windows. It would be what a shinobi would do after all. It would be best to think outside the box in that case. Forming a single hand sign, Naruto formed a Tsuchu Banshin in the foliage behind him. Using a quick kawarami, he replaced himself with it and commanded it to approach the tower from the outside. As the clone left, he cloned himself in his Kokoni Aruzu no Jutsu and overlapped it with the Ninju Kokoni Aruzu no Jutsu. If anyone managed to spot him entering the front door, he would have sufficient cover, not to mention that any assailant would have to dispel 2 genjutsu to even find him. Not many ninja thought to look past a single genjutsu for one that may have been beneath it. Shaking himself out of his thoughts on the failings of many shinobi, Naruto quietly moved to the front door of the tower. It would be best to simply get the test over with. While he felt that he was probably the first to the tower, arrogant as it was, he knew that it wouldn't be long until other trainees managed to catch up. He trusted his skills enough and strode confidently into the tower that held the key to his shinobi future. Time skip. Mind if I join you? A smooth voice spoke up from behind Naruto. Turning away from his steaming bowl of pork ramen, Naruto's eyes found the figure of Toji Mizuki. The silver-haired proctor was visible through the white flaps that served as an entrance into the Ichiraku ramen stand. Behind the silver-haired Chunin stood a young woman with short black hair and a Chunin vest. She had her arms folded under her chest and seemed to waiting impatiently. Not at all. Company is always appreciated. Naruto addressed his former proctor with a smile. He seemed pleasant enough outside the constraints of duty that was. A smile appeared on the man's face. Great then, turning to address the woman waiting outside to continue. Why don't you head home, Tsubaki? I won't be long. The short-haired woman sighed lightly. Alright then, but don't take too long. She leaned in and gave the man a quick peck on the cheek before leaping to the roof on the other side of the road. Mizuki looked after her fondly, but with a touch of annoyance. Is that any way to say goodbye to your boyfriend? I don't think so, he mumbled. Naruto choked back a chuckle. After she disappeared, the silver-haired Chunin moved inside the stand and sat on a stool next to Naruto. I'll have a medium miso ramen, please, he ordered to the stand owner. Good choice, Naruto quipped from beside him, in between bites of his own ramen. That's one of my favorites. Mizuki nodded in agreement. Yeah, miso is good. A friend of mine got me into it a few years back and I haven't stopped eating it. You've got a smart friend there, Toji-san. Naruto nodded his approval. Mizuki, please. We're co-workers now, aren't we? Naruto-san? Mizuki asked with a smile as his ramen appeared in front of him. Guess so, Naruto agreed. A quick glance at his new Chunin flag vest over his usual black attire brought a smile to the young Chunin's face. Indeed, in fact, that was what I was hoping to talk to you about. Naruto raised a blunt eyebrow. You were looking for me? For what for? Mizuki paused in slapping of his noodles to cast a glance at his 10-year-old companion. Partly the rumors that seemed to be circling you now, but mostly because I was hoping to introduce myself properly. I mean, he quickly amended. The little intro I gave yesterday hardly counts. Naruto backed a laugh. Are you always that intimidating? Mizuki had the grace to blush and look sheepish. Well, I guess I didn't do such a great job with the intimidation factor, did I? It's not really my thing. Nope. Naruto asked for his bill and pushed his bowl away before turning to his colleague. So what do you want to know? He inquired. I thought that you would come to introduce yourself if you didn't have questions. Well, you're right about that, Mizuki began. I guess I found myself intrigued after I heard the report from one of the gate guards about how you entered the forest. Naruto nodded with a barely noticeable smirk at the memory. He was proud of that little moment of quick thinking. I watched the tape earlier, so I figured that I would do a little digging, and you came to me for some answers. Naruto finished for him. So how many people did you ask before you found out that I came here all the time? He was surprised and a little flattered that the man was taking interest in him. Maybe his skills were finally starting to be recognized. If Mizuki was unsettled by the boy's perceptiveness, he didn't show it. Just one, actually. Yumine Iruka. You know him, I suppose. Naruto nodded in recognition. The scout Chunin, an academy teacher to Naruto's knowledge, frequented Ichiraku quite a bit. The two had crossed paths more than once. Yes, I know Iruka. So what do you want to know? Mizuki appraised the boy for a few seconds before starting. Well, there are a few that I'd like to ask, but you look like you want to leave, so I'll be quick. Naruto nodded. He did want to be getting home soon. What exactly is someone of your age and talent doing in the reserve program? Mizuki asked, his full attention on Naruto. Naruto scoffed lightly. He knew that the man would ask that. Long story, but I'll give you the quick version. Mizuki nodded in agreement, so Naruto continued. I graduated the top of my class last year and had the misfortune of being on Kakashi Haraki's Genin team. The silver-haired man winced while nodding. The young Jonin was becoming notorious for the failing of every Genin squad given to him. Yeah, that'll do it, I suppose. It still is a bit of surprise though. It's not every day that the top rookie gets sent to the reserve. A sagely nod made his statement. Yeah, I thought it's been good for me. I was a right arrogant prick out of the academy. Mizuki stared a little at the admission. Naruto wasn't someone who he had pegged as arrogant at all. Confident and self-assured, but not arrogant. The boy actually seemed fairly humble, but it might have been an effect of the last year. Well, Naruto said, shaking Mizuki out of his thoughts. It was nice meeting you. Maybe we'll work together on some missions in the future. The thought wasn't unappealing to the blonde 10-year-old. Mizuki came across as someone who he could trust. Probably not, Mizuki replied with a small wince. I'm studying a stint at the academy in a week. Iruka's class actually. The old assistant got promoted to Tokubetsu Johnny. It was Naruto's turn to wince in sympathy. Ouch. That class had Sarutobi in it. He noted that Mizuki's eyes darkened when he spoke the name of the village resident prankster, though it was for a different reason than Naruto thought. Yeah, Mizuki replied grimly. I take it you're not a fan of the boy's art. Naruto scoffed in derision. Hardly. The kid is an idiot and an insult. He has the shinobi no kami as his grandfather and the elite tutored Ebisu training him, and he spends his time pranking the villagers. It's no wonder that half of the village seems to hate him. Mizuki merely nodded. He couldn't trust himself to say anything about the boy without breaking the third Hokage's law. Naruto was only a year older than Konohamaru after all, skill and maturity notwithstanding. Well, I hope to see you around then. If you won't be on missions Naruto stuck out his hand with a smile. Mizuki grasped the outstretched hand firmly. Indeed, have a good night, Naruto said. And you, time skip. The wind was a silent whisper in the evening atop the Hokage monument. Naruto felt it tussle his head gently as he stood atop of the head of the fourth Hokage. He came up here every often in order to watch the sunset. With the monument facing northwest, it provided a spectacular view. It was a bit of a thinking spot for him, a place where he could gather his thoughts after an interesting day. And what a day it had been. He had made Chunin, not that there had been any real thought in his mind that he would. It was an eventuality. It was an eventuality to Naruto, just like he knew that he would become Jonin one day, just like he knew that he would make the name Uzumaki known throughout the elemental nations once more. Would you be proud of me, mother? He wondered as he turned his gaze to the east, towards the sea and the former Whirlpool country, the former home of the once respected Uzumaki clan. Whirlpool country had been decimated at the tail end of the second secret shinobi war. Its former inhabitants were some of the war's final casualties. Not much was known about the once respected nation, only that it had once played host to the Uzumaki clan, a clan that had been decimated the same day Whirlpool had been wiped off the face of the planet. There had been only two survivors. Uzumaki Kushina, his mother, was the only one who managed to make it to Fire Country and Konoha. She had been 7 years old. From there, her shinobi career began. It was one filled with many missions and strife due to the outbreak of the third secret war, and Kushina had made Chunin at the young age of 12. In the short-lived peacetime between conflicts, she had never made it further. Presumably, she had met Naruto's father somewhere along the way, and the two had him when Kushina was 21. Naruto had no idea who his father was, and really had no desire to find out. The man had abandoned his mother when she needed him the most and left Kushina to fend for herself. It was only because of the savings that his mother had from her ninja's career that she and Naruto had been able to get by for a year. What might have happened later was unknown, as Kushina had been one of the many shinobi in Kunoichi cut down in the Kyuubi attack. The only memory Naruto had of his mother was of her kissing him goodbye one night, giving the red glow that was emanating from the windows during the memory. Naruto assumed that it was the night of the Kyuubi attack, the last time he had seen her. Ever since he had been old enough to understand his mother's sacrifice, he had thrown himself into training and research about his history and his ancestors, training to become greatest shinobi he could be and to establish the name Uzumaki once more. It was not a dream to him. It was an eventuality. One way or another, he would make the name Uzumaki known to the world once again.
Well, that's the end. What does Naruto's future hold for him? Will it be a smooth ride to the rank of Jonin? Or will he face challenges, some of which he won't be able to overcome? Find out next time on Rooster's What Ifs.